Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to the online class, children. Social Science, Class 9. We are going to see a chapter from Civics book. Chapter 2. What is democracy? Why democracy? And today we are going to cover the topic such as the introduction of democracy, features of democracy, and major decisions by elected leaders. First of all, what is democracy, children? Can you see the picture here? What is written here? Power to the people. Do we have power really? Do we have power in democracy form of government? Yes, of course. We have power. We have power to choose his or her own representative, his or her representatives by their wish, by their choice. So we have the power to choose our representatives. And as well as we have the power to remove the representative if they are not performing well, if they are not functioning well. How can we remove the representative? Through the election. So if the elected representative will perform well in the particular period only, we will select the same candidate in the next election. If they are not so, the people will not select the candidate again and again. So through the election, we have the power through the election, we can have the power to remove the candidate who are not performing well. Okay. So we have the power to select our leader. We have the power to remove our leaders too. Okay. And the popular statement given by the Abraham Lincoln about democracy. So what is that, children? So democracy is of the people, by the people, and for the people. So let's go into a lesson. So what is democracy? Here we have a simple definition about democracy. So what is that? The democracy is a form of government. Democracy is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. So this is a simple and fundamental basic issue in the democracy, basic matter in the democracy, that is democracy means the rulers are elected by people. So this is a simple definition, and this definition allows us to understand about the democracy. Okay, so this allows us to separate the democracy form of government from the non-democratic form of government, because if we say it is a democracy means the people are elected by people. If not, they are not a democracy form of government, they are non-democratic form of government. Okay, so that we have an example here. The army rule in Myanmar and the kings of Nepal and Saudi Arabia. Okay, so the army rule of Myanmar and the kings of Nepal. Okay, and here, so the army rule, because Myanmar got independence in the year 1948, and it had its own elected representative. But what happened in Myanmar? Suddenly, the military overthrew the elected representative in Myanmar, and the army seized the power of the Myanmar. And now the next one, see the kings of Nepal and the Saudi Arabia. So the king of Nepal and Saudi Arabia, they are not elected by people. Okay, so simply they born into that royal family, they are being a king of Saudi Arabia or the Nepal. So actually they were not elected by the people. And the same is applied to Myanmar case also. So the people who rule, the army rule in Myanmar, the army person, they are not elected by people. Okay, because they led a military coup and seized the power. So they were not elected. The army rule, the power, the people who rule the Myanmar, they were not elected by the people. Okay, so here the army rule of Myanmar and the kings of Nepal and Saudi Arabia are not a democratic form of government because they are not elected by people. So listen, your children. So we have learnt about a simple definition of democracy, that is the democracy form of government in which the rulers are elected by people. So democracy is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by people. If not, they are not a democratic form of government. For example, we can say the army rule of Myanmar, the kings of Nepal and Saudi Arabia. Okay, this simple definition is not adequate to understand more about democracy. So, we move on to learn about the features of democracy now. Let's see. So, here there are six elements uh, given here. So, we are going to see the six elements one after the other now. So, first of all, the rulers are elected by people. Just now we have learned that. Democracy means it is a form of government in which rulers are elected by people. Okay, so this is a simple definition for the democracy. And major decisions by elected leaders. Of course, major decision taking power must rest in the hands of the elected leaders. And then the third one, the free and fair electoral competition. So the democratic form of government must offers the free and fair electoral competition to its citizens and elections at regular interval. How many years once we have a general election, children? 5 years once. Good. And the next one person, one vote and one value. The last one, the rule of law and respect for the rights. So now we are going to see one after the other. Okay. So first one we are going to see about the major decisions elected by the leaders. Can you see the visual here, children? Can you see the flag here? Can you say which country flag is this? Yeah, it is. This flag belongs to Pakistan. Okay, and the person is called a General Parvez Musharraf. So let's see a small story from Pakistan to derive a important feature of democracy. Okay. So in October 1999, General Parvez Musharraf led a military coup in Pakistan. So he suddenly overthrew a democratically elected government in Pakistan and declared himself as a chief executive of the country. And soon he changed his position from the chief executive to the president. So he changed his position from the chief executive to the president level. Okay. And in the year 2002, he held a referendum. So through that referendum, he had a chance to rule the Pakistan for the next 5 years. So what does mean the referendum here? So referendum means it's nothing but a direct vote. Okay, in which a direct referendum means it is a direct vote in which the entire electorate is asked to either reject or accept the particular proposal. So Musharraf held the referendum in the year 2002. So that referendum gave a chance for the Musharraf to rule the Pakistan for the next 5 years. In Pakistan, the human activists and the people, the media people, they complained that the referendum was held in a malpractice with a lot of malpractices. But somehow the referendum gave him a chance for ruling the Pakistan for the next 5 years. Okay, however, it was done in a malpractice way. It gave the Musharraf to rule the Pakistan for the next 5 years. And then in the same year, in August 2002, he issued a legal framework order. Okay. So according to this order, the president can dismiss the national and the provincial assemblies. Now at that point of time, who was the president? Musharraf. So this legal framework order gave a lot of power to president. And what is that? The president can dismiss the national and the provincial assemblies. Okay. And then, so after this legal framework order, the Pakistan holds the election. So it holds the election, and then the people have elected the persons for the national and the provincial assemblies. Okay, but the work of the civilian cabinet is supervised by the National Security Council, and which is dominated by the military officials. Okay, so listen here, the work of the civilian cabinet, it was supervised by the National Security Council, and that was dominated by the military officers of Pakistan. So now you have to understand one thing, children. So Pakistan had an election, and people may have selected the representatives for the national and the provincial assemblies. Then elected leaders have had some powers. The elected leader had some powers in Pakistan, but the final decision making power, the final decision power rested with the military officials and General Musharraf himself. Okay. So listen here, children, what we learned in the previous slide, that is, what is a simple definition? The rulers are elected by people. So that means we called it as a democracy form of government. But what happens here? The people selected the representative for the national and the provincial assemblies. But what happened? The elected representative had some powers only. They are not actually a real ruler, because the final decision making power was rest in the hands of the Musharraf only. Do we call the Pakistan under the Musharraf rule is a democratic form of government? Certainly not, because the elected leaders, the elected representatives, they are not really a ruler. Okay, the final decision making power was rest in the hands of the Musharraf. So with this story, we can derive one more important feature of democracy, that is, in a democratic form of government, the final decision making power must rest in the hands of the elected leaders. So the major decisions by elected leader is one of the important feature of the democratic form of government. Okay. So that's all, children. Today we learnt about what is introduction of democracy and what are the features of democracy, and we also learnt about first feature of democracy, that is, the final decision making power must rest in the hands of the elected representatives. Now take down the assignment, children. What is democracy? Give examples of non-democratic countries. The second one, who led a military coup in Pakistan in the year 1999? The third one, how did Musharraf establish his rule in Pakistan? Thank you, children.